So we say good afternoon to Kathy Gyngell, who is a policy researcher at the Centre for Policy Studies in London. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, good afternoon, Tony.
I thought we are going to discuss the British drug policy and in general, and more specifically, the new drug strategy. But if we start off with the present drug situation in the UK, could you enlighten us about that?
Well, it hasn't got better. I think the first thing is we're quite good in the UK, quite good about data collection. And we have, over the last few years, been collecting very good estimates of the number of problem drug users, that's heroin, crack cocaine users. Now, despite a huge investment in treatment, and particularly in prescribing harm reduction type of treatment over the last 12 years, there is no statistically significant change in the estimates of that problem drug using population to whom that type of treatment was most directed, i.e. heroin addicts. So what we have is our sort of perhaps most intense problem drug using population hasn't been dented despite this investment. There is some evidence, but that's sort of poorer, from the British Crime Survey, which is a very limited household survey, and from the school surveys, that maybe cannabis use has gone down. But at the same time, we have a situation where there's a lot of evidence that it's starting earlier, even pre-teen. So it sort of swings and roundabouts on that. The very tough side, difficult side that we're running is that we are now the sort of the lead of the world for cocaine use. I mean, definitely the head of the game in Europe, and on legal highs, which actually we have taken some action to make them illegal, which, you know, they've finally done well on. But we have a huge cocaine problem now in this country. We have, I haven't got the statistics bang in front of me, but we have 100 to 200% increases in nearly every harm, poisoning, death, etc., to do with cocaine use in the last 10 years.
So who should be blamed and shamed for this?
Well, New Labour had a very ideological drugs policy, which basically was quite categorical in regarding drug use as morally neutral. And even written into earlier drug strategies in 2002, drug use was not perceived as a problem, only problem drug use was. So we've had a strategy that has stopped trying to curtail what was deemed to be unproblematic drug use, and a policy that focused exclusively on what was deemed to be problem drug use, as though the two things were entirely separate. On top of that, all investment went into harm reduction treatment, i.e. basically methadone prescribing. So it was very narrow and a very fixed policy, and I think they basically got it wrong.
Methadone seems to be increasing in many parts of the world. What would you say about the methadone treatment programs in your country? Have they been successful?
No. It's because, again, they've just failed to dent this problem-using population. We also have a problem that it's been used as a default treatment. So even if an addict presents to treatment with a range of drug use problems, which indeed they often do, so even if his crack cocaine might have been his prominent problem, but he still uses heroin, he would be put on methadone. And we've had, I think, probably if one was talking to an American expert on methadone, they wouldn't probably regard what we've been doing as having methadone programs, simply methadone dispensing, with very, very little accompanying psychosocial support.
Cannabis is another issue on top of the agenda in most European countries. I mean, if we look at your country, it was first classified in Class B, then it was under David Blunkett, D. It was placed in C, Class C, and now it's back up in B again. What is the present situation about cannabis in your country?
Well, it doesn't. The actual, sort of sadly, although it was absolutely correct in my view for them to put it back into Class B, because as we know, a very small amount can be so devastating for the young person who's got a predisposition towards psychosis or schizophrenia, and so little can be the trigger. But the fact is it hasn't made any difference because it is not treated, even though it's in Class B, as a particularly illegal activity. So it's basically dealt with by, oh, sorry, there's some noise in the background, dealt with by warnings, which mean nothing, there is no other intervention like your marvellous Maria Ljungdahl scheme in Sweden. Beyond a policeman giving a kid a warning, there is no other intervention, no other help, no other investigation of what's really happening to him with his drug use.
Mm. Now, yesterday, the new British Drug Strategy 2010 was officially published or announced. Are there any hope for the future if we look at the drug strategy? What are the main components of that strategy?
Well, no, it's a definite improvement. I mean, my very brief assessment, it was 2 cheers for it rather than 3 cheers for it. It has 3 legs: reducing demand, restricting supply, and building recovery. I think it's the best strategy we've seen on being clear about the need to reduce demand and restrict supply for many years. So that is extremely positive. How and quite how they'll put this into action, I don't know, but we simply haven't had that aspiration before. There's been a lot of talk about recovery over the last 2 or 3 years in England, and you may be aware that Scotland produced a drug strategy a year or 2 ago called The Road to Recovery. Mm. My concern, why I'm not giving 3 cheers to the new strategy, it is very strong on sentiment and words, and very, very short on actually responding to a very, very unbalanced treatment system that we have. They appear to be pinning hopes on a system called payment by results, where it will be very tempting for people to fix housing problems, employment problems, but maybe perhaps not fix the underlying addiction. It's very vague, and really it's tricky, but it's not as specific as I would have wished.
No. What about the money available for this? Is there there been any input for more money and more staff?
Well, we've had a huge input of money over the last. Currently the drugs budget runs to $750 million a year, basically for 200,000 people nominally in treatment. 155,000 of those are on methadone scripts. Now, given that the methadone prescribing and dispensing costs is only 39 million. We have had absolutely appalling wastage. My hope had been that some of these funds would be directed into providing more structured abstinence programs in residential and quasi-residential or structured daycare settings. There is no commitment to that per se. So I don't think we've been short of money. Indeed, I think the minister at the launch yesterday suggested more money may be forthcoming on the public health side. So I don't think money is the issue, it's the wisdom with which it's spent.
Mm. What about if we compare the present government with Prime Minister Cameron and compare to the former government? Is there any major differences in their views on the drug problem?
Yeah, without doubt, Cameron is on record of being extremely sympathetic to and understands the need for rehabilitation. I wish his words. I can quote you something from him if you just allow me to turn one page over. And I wish we'd seen these words in the new drug strategy. Then I would have been very happy today, but they weren't. He said earlier this year, he said, oh, I'm so sorry. I would have had this ready if I'd known you were going to ask the question. The last government became too target-obsessed. It was all about how many addicts are in touch with treatment agencies. And this, in too many cases, really meant the addict was talking to somebody and maybe getting some methadone, which is the government-authorized form of opium, rather than heroin. It really did not address the problem that the addict had a drug habit. That's my insertion of words. I would like to try to provide, difficult though it will be given the shortage of money, we have been left more residential treatment programs. Well, that is not in the new drug strategy. And I don't believe, given that this budget is ring-fenced, there is actually quite such a shortage of money.
Mm.
So his intention is certainly, and his understanding is very improved and far superior to Labour. But it hasn't yet driven through into action.
Has there been any reaction so far to the drug strategy from the general public or from professionals?
I really feel you've come to me a little bit. I've been writing my own reaction today,
Okay.
and I haven't reviewed all the papers yet.
Okay.
And actually, there didn't seem to be any coverage on the BBC News this morning. Yesterday, there was something on the BBC website that simply summarised what the strategy said. So I'm afraid you've come to me a little early for that.
Okay.
I may be one of the more critical people.
Okay. So, well, I say thank you very much to you. It was nice talking to you.